Hey, what is going on, people? This is your boy Say One History on the Awaken Show. And I'm just sitting back enjoying my 2 days of vacation, doing a little bit of working out, relaxing, getting massages and whatnot, and also just reading over a few articles and, looking up our type of news, in a matter of speaking. And when you're, of course, looking up our type of news, we always come across these strange and bizarre UFO sightings here across the world. But what happens when you add teleportation into the mix? Well, if you don't know that answer, you end up getting a story very similar to Harry Turner's story that happened in September of 1979 in Richmond, Virginia. So we have Times Dispatch reporting on a strange case of a truck driver, Harry Turner, who was driving to Fredericksburg from Winchester, Virginia in the United States. So we have Harry Turner driving down this long stretch of road in the United States here, when all of a sudden his big rig is engulfed in this blinding white light, which at first he took as the headlights of an oncoming truck. But soon after, his truck then became engulfed in this white light, and he started to notice that his steering wheel started to malfunction. It became very clear that he was no longer in control of the vehicle anymore when the wheel started to move back and forth very rapidly, and then he noticed as he looked out the window that his truck was literally floating in the air. Now, you can imagine if all this stuff is happening to you at once, your vehicle's floating in the air, your steering wheel is going crazy here, you're thinking about self-preservation here, you're trying to get everything all together. Well, in the midst of doing all that here, he comes into another predicament where a seemingly invisible force rips off the door handle of his big rig truck. Now, Harry stated in his interview, while all this is happening, he could literally hear footsteps at the top of his truck moving back and forth. Before he can get everything together, he literally feels this extreme force pull him out of his truck. Now, Harry stated that night he was actually carrying a revolver, which as most nights he usually does anyway. He states he just doesn't like to be without it in the middle of the night here while he's conversing back and forth from state to state here on these long winding highways, which makes complete sense to me because when I was actually in the military, one of my MOSs was actually truck driving, and I just remember going down these long winding roads, and being on the road you would see really strange things. And even when you're deployed, of course, you're having tons and tons of ammunition, people back there to protect you. So in my eyes, it made sense that he would actually do this. So Harry, having his revolver, instinctively pulls it out and starts to fire. Now, the thing about this whole situation is he can't see who's attacking him. So he just tries to point and really hope for the best. He said as he was firing, he noticed that it had no effect on the beam or whatever it was that was actually pulling on him. That's when Harry said he blacked out, and the last thing he remembers is waking up in a warehouse parking lot in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Now, most people would chalk this up as a bad dream, a little bit too much to drink, maybe some drugs, or mental illness. But some things just didn't add up. Like, for example, when Harry did go into the warehouse, the clock stated that it was 3 a.m., but when Harry read his watch, it actually stated it was 11:17 p.m. And as far as the odometer on his truck was concerned, he had only traveled 17 miles when the trip to Fredericksburg was 80 miles away. Not to mention that Harry has had no previous conditions of mental illness, drug addiction, or alcohol abuse whatsoever. So all of this just doesn't add up, and it seems very strange indeed. Now, in the beginning, Harry had no memory of anything that actually happened after he had blacked out. But later on, he stated that he started to recount some of his memories, some of the things that actually happened to him in between that time, as most UFO abductees actually do. Now, Harry goes on to say he remembers boarding their ship, he remembers extraterrestrials in white garments, and he also remembers being introduced to the extraterrestrial that he kicked when he was trying to get away from them when they were taking him onto their ship. Now, I'm not going to give you the details and actually spoil this for you, but I will go ahead and leave a link in the description so you can check the article out yourself. It goes into a lot of detail, and I think you'll find it very interesting. Matter of fact, what I also find interesting is that most of UFO abductees actually have memory loss later on, showing that they have memory or recounts of what actually happened weeks, months, or years down the road here. And I just feel like something like that may actually happen with the skier from New York that ended up in Sacramento, California, which coincidentally is actually where I'm at. But who knows, maybe weeks, months, years later on down the line, he will recount some of the events. You just never know, or it could just be something else completely different. We don't know. So, what do you think, guys? Do you think this was an actual alien abduction, or did someone have just a little bit too much to drink? What I do know is that there's going to be lots of debate, and I would love to hear about it. And with that being said, I'm going to sign off. This is your boy Say One History on The Awakened Show, and until next time, be safe and take care.